Welcome to the Explainer. Right now, we're looking at a massive, structural shift happening in the world of open source security, spearheaded by a huge initiative known as IBM Project Lightwell. For decades, the foundational digital infrastructure of our entire world has been secured in a very specific, community-driven way. But the arrival of highly capable frontier AI, it's completely upended that reality. We're about to explore exactly why the old system broke and how the tech industry is fighting back against this new machine speed threat. Here's our roadmap for this $5 billion paradigm shift. We're going to hit the AI vulnerability crisis, meet Project Lightwell, break down their backporting solution, impartially weigh the open source debate, and wrap up with securing the AI era. Let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into this. It wasn't that long ago that the window between finding a critical software vulnerability and someone actually exploiting it in the wild was, well, roughly a year. You had breathing room, right? Time to find the flaw, write a patch, roll it out. But today? No way. That timeline has violently collapsed down to just 24 hours. Section 1, the AI vulnerability crisis and the collapse of the exploit window. So how did that barrier to entry vanish practically overnight? Well, it's the intersection of open source software and frontier AI. With modern AI reasoning models, the bottleneck is just completely gone. It used to take immense time, money, and hyper-specialized skills for bad actors to comb through code, find a defect, and weaponize it. Not anymore. Now, attackers can just feed target code into an AI and generate devastating, highly functional exploit scripts. And get this, the average cost, literally $1, and it takes them maybe 10-15 minutes tops. The entire economics of cyber warfare have totally flipped. To give you an idea of the sheer terrifying scale of this capability, look at a recent defensive testing program called Project Glasswing. Researchers took Anthropic's Claude Mythos preview model and unleashed it for just 72 hours to scan 1,000 active open source projects. The result? The AI identified a staggering 23,019 security flaws. Wow. And we're not talking about minor theoretical hiccups here. It found vulnerabilities that had successfully hidden in critical infrastructure for over 2 decades. But here's where the real systemic failure comes in. It's not just the bugs themselves. It's our human capacity to fix them. Recent data shows that fewer than 1% of those 23,019 AI-discovered vulnerabilities were actually patched. The folks maintaining open source, who, remember, are mostly unpaid volunteers working in their free time, they're just drowning. They completely lack the administrative and technical resources required to keep up with this kind of machine speed discovery. The old volunteer-driven models simply cannot keep pace anymore. IBM CEO Arvind Krishna summed up the pivot perfectly. He noted that the Claude Mythos test was the undeniable proof that the traditional open-source security model was fundamentally broken. Relying solely on goodwill to secure global financial systems and electrical grids against AI speed attacks, it's just not a viable strategy. Something massive had to change. Which brings us to Section 2. Meet Project Lightwell, a $5 billion corporate cavalry. To really grasp the industry's response here, you've got to look at the sheer scale of the commitment IBM and Red Hat are bringing to the table. Remember those overwhelmed volunteer maintainers? Well, here's the stark contrast. While a lot of companies out there are using AI to cut technical headcount, IBM and Red Hat are actually deploying a global force of over 20,000 engineers. This massive technical army works right alongside advanced AI capabilities to act as a premium, highly strategic defense line for enterprise software. Let's move to and see how this builds in practice. Project Lightwell essentially operates as a trusted enterprise clearinghouse. It's a very structured workflow. First, an enterprise securely reports a vulnerability. Next, Lightwell's AI and those 20,000 engineers triage, test, and validate the fix. Then, a production-ready patch is delivered directly to the enterprise. And finally, they coordinate the disclosure of that fix back upstream to the public community. And honestly, it's no surprise who jumped on this first. The most highly regulated financial institutions on the planet. Think Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, Visa, Goldman Sachs, and MasterCard. They were the initial pilot partners shaping this. These organizations face impossibly strict compliance standards, right? They process trillions of dollars in daily transactions. They literally cannot afford unpatched vulnerabilities just sitting in their supply chains waiting for an exploit. Section 3. The backporting solution. Fixing code without breaking production. And this brilliantly illustrates the real-world relief for engineering teams. See, under the old model, vulnerability scanners would flag a flaw and then basically force you to upgrade your entire software library to the absolute newest version just to get the fix. That could break your APIs, cause massive operational risk, maybe even take whole systems down. The Lightwell model uses a technique called pinned version backporting. That means if you're stuck on a specific legacy version of code, they deliver a secure patch custom-built for that exact version. No forced upgrades, no broken environments. It's a game changer. This becomes absolutely crucial when you factor in transitive dependencies. Basically, these are the hidden nested software packages that get imported automatically by the code you're actively writing. It's kind of like needing to fix a cracked pipe hidden deep inside your house's walls, but doing it without tearing down the entire building to reach it. Standard security scanners throw massive false positives here, sending developers chasing ghosts. But Lightwell uses its AI and human engineers to map out these crazy complex, hidden dependency trees and backport the fixes safely across the whole chain. So looking at the rollout roadmap, Phase 1 focuses heavily on the Java and Maven ecosystem, which makes complete sense because Java is the structural backbone for those big regulated financial institutions we just talked about. But if you're a developer building web or AI apps right now, Phase 2 is what's going to hit your daily workflow. The rollout will expand this commercial subscription out to Python, JavaScript, and Go modules, meaning it'll directly impact the broader tech stacks used for modern AI and web development. Section 4. The open source debate. Friction in the community. Of course, you don't drop a corporate intervention of this magnitude without sparking some serious debate, and open source contributors have raised some incredibly valid operational concerns. First up, there's a real fear that volunteer maintainers will get totally overwhelmed by a sudden flood of AI-generated security pull requests coming from these corporate engines. Second is the worry about a two-tier security ecosystem forming, a scenario where Wall Street banks get life-saving patches immediately because they can pay, while the general public sits vulnerable for days or weeks. And finally, there's the abandoned project dilemma. What happens to legacy projects that literally no longer have an active community to review or accept these life-saving patches? To address that fear of proprietary security hoarding, IBM and Red Hat are emphasizing a strict upstream-first commitment. The stated goal here is balance. So while commercial subscribers pay for the heavy engineering lifting and the service-level agreements to backport and sign the patches, the actual code fixes themselves are contributed back to the public upstream repositories at the exact same time. Plus, there are global legal guardrails forming to ensure this balance is permanently kept. Upcoming international regulations, most notably the European Cyber Resilience Act, legally enforce open and non-discriminatory disclosure practices. Basically, this acts as a robust legal mechanism to make sure commercial clearinghouses can't just hoard security fixes for their paying clients and leave the rest of the public internet completely vulnerable. Section 5. Securing the AI era. The future of infrastructure. As we step back to look at the big picture, we can see how this initiative represents a permanent shift in overarching defense strategy. Project Lightwell doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It integrates into a much larger, cohesive suite of AI security tools. For example, you've got IBM Concert giving you a unified operational view across complex systems, while Secure Coder works alongside developers to fix vulnerabilities in real time, right as they type their code. Combined with autonomous security agents, the ultimate goal here is to move organizations entirely away from slow, passive vulnerability monitoring and into active, machine-speed defense. So the crucial point is this: the landscape of digital security has permanently changed. As AI tools collapse the timeline for vulnerability discovery and exploitation down to mere minutes, our global digital economy is facing a severe capacity crisis. This $5 billion corporate clearinghouse model is one major structural answer to that crisis. But as we look at the sheer scale of the threat, it leaves us with a truly provocative question moving forward. In the age of AI, can the security of our foundational digital infrastructure ever again rely on the heroic but ultimately limited efforts of volunteers? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.